Welcome to Ideas, a time of conversation about all things board games. Community is built on conversations, and games are built on ideas.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Welcome to Ideas. Welcome to a time in which we sit down with game designers, publishers, illustrators in the board gaming hobby, and we discuss and find out how their ideas became not just ideas, but the games that we love to play. And I believe that community is built on conversation, much like games are built on ideas. And today we have a special guest. We always have a special guest, but that's just what I say. We have Mike Fitzgerald, designer of many games, with one being one of my favorite games, Baseball Highlight 2045, which we'll talk about momentarily. But Mike, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's fine to be here, Brent. I'm excited about this. This is going to be good.
So let's just jump into this. When did you, whatever, your origin story, your gaming story, like when did you start playing games? What did gaming look like for you growing up?
Well, when I was about 4, my father cracked out a deck of cards and taught me cribbage, which is a game he played during World War II. He was an anti-aircraft officer in the war, and they were stationed outside of Paris and around France for quite a while. So he would tell me, yeah, we'd sit and play cards for 3 days, and then we'd have a day of terror as the planes flew over. We had to try to shoot them down. They were trying to get us and all that. I love cribbage. I mean, I don't have a lot of memories of being 4 though, but I do know that's when he showed it to me, because he always told me that you've been doing this since you're 4. You're pretty good now, that kind of stuff. And then I started rummy. Must have been about 6. I spent a summer with a cousin of mine in Long Island, and we tried to do, instead of 500 rummy, we tried to do 1,000,000 rummy. Wow. Which just meant to try to get to a score of 1,000,000. We were kids. What do we know? We never came close. I mean, I don't even know if we made 2,000 or something. But wow. But I was really attracted to the rummy game and what kind of a game it was. And I didn't really start designing a game for myself till I was 40 something. Let's see, born 48, 93. Yeah, I'm 45 before my first game comes out. But I had gaming background from those card games, and then there were more card games getting asked. It was just so every card game imaginable. In fact, by the time I was a teenager, friends of mine and I, we were on a mission to play every card game in the world. But and again, I'm not sure we ever got anywhere as close to that, but I discovered some pretty cool games from around the world and even versions of games that we know in this country that are played differently around the world. So that was just a lot of fun. And later on, I started playtesting for game companies. So I did that probably college age and on. And, I always felt and then I got into the board gaming. That must have been, oh God, well, late 50s, I think, because I got Avalon Hill, I discovered, and I got a lot of their games and learned them. And I used to think to myself, well, this is really good, but maybe it should have been done this way or that way. So I'd start to think about that. Then they'd ask me to play test some, because I got to know some of the guys and see them at conventions and stuff. And 20s and 30s, I would actually be put on the game as a play tester. So that was the gaming background. My favorite game as a child, well, there's 2 really. There's rummy and there's cribbage. They were 2 favorites. And then a bunch of games I actually made. I made a bunch of games when I was very young with a deck of cards. In fact, I made a baseball game with just a deck of cards, and I really liked that game. And I used to keep stats and do all kinds of crazy things with that. And then when I discovered sports simulation games like APA and Stratomatic, they were really the big two for quite a while. I just got into playing those a lot over time. So there's a lot of that before the 90s. And I'll tell you that I'll make the story quick, but what got me to design my first game is a pretty funny story. Because people always ask me that, you do so many games, how to get your first game published. Well, I was walking down the aisles of Toy Fair in New York. I was on the radio in New York, and I would get a press pass every year for Toy Fair, and I'd just walk around. And it was 1994, because that summer is when Magic the Gathering came out in 93. Yeah. So I fell in love with that game, and I just played it all the time, and I re-engineered it. I did all kinds of things. But that February at the Toy Fair of 94, I'm walking down the aisle, and I have a Magic deck with me, and this voice says, "Hey, you with the Magic deck, come on over here." And I walked over. It was a guy from Stamford, Connecticut, and I lived up in Norwalk, Connecticut at the time. Okay. And he said, "Yeah, I know this game. I see this game a lot. I wanted to ask you if you knew much about it." And I said, "Well, I do. I know quite a bit about it." So he asked me some questions. He says, "I do tarot cards." He was the biggest tarot card maker in the world. U.S. Games was based in Stamford, Connecticut. Funny, he's called U.S. Games, didn't make a game. It was all tarot cards. He says, "Well, I'm hoping to make it a game now." So he said, "Do you know anybody who could design a game like this? I have this artist who makes beautiful dragons and mythology stuff for my tarot decks, and I think he'd be great at making cards for this kind of trading card game if I could find someone who could do it." And I said, "Well, I could." And I never, to this day, don't know why I said that, except that I love the format, and I thought to myself, I guess, a couple of times, well, I probably could figure this out and maybe make one. But then he said, well, he had some prototypes coming in, like Sid Saxon was making one, somebody else was making one, whatever. So, but you're free to make one, and you can bring it in a month or so. I said, a month to do a trading card game. That seems like a quick turnaround to me. And it is. So I went home and I made Stratego into a trading card game. Okay. Basically what I did, and it ended up being called Wyvern, and it came out in late, I guess 95 might be the official release. It finally came out, and it lasted 3 expansions, and it was very different from Magic. It was because I never like to do anything the same as somebody else. I just reverse Magic. Instead of being an engine builder, it was a collapsible game. Okay. So you started with all you're going to get, and you were hanging on till the end. And it had a good 3 years. And those days were so many trading card games coming out, just like now, by the way. This is the second age, the second period of time like this. So I know what happened then anyway. So I can imagine what's going to happen this time. But so those of us that got in early enough with the game lasted a little while. So Richard Garfield, the guy who designed Magic the Gathering, gave me a call and said, "Listen, we really like Wyvern, especially because it's the only one of these games." And by that time, Ultimate Combat had come out. There's some others that were just Magic. They would just reskin the card. That's all we did. And he said, "We'd like you to come and talk to us." So I went to Seattle, talked to them. They said, "We want to pay you to not do trading card games for any other company. But for everything you do for us, we will pay you as if you're a new designer and not somebody we're paying for something else." So that was a really sweet deal. And I did 3 games for them. I did Nitro is my game, the wrestling game they did based on WCW. I also, it's a long story, but then I ended up doing, for WWF, I ended up doing, what was the name of theirs? Can't remember the name now. Anyway, it's their wrestling game too. So I did both wrestling.
Cool.
We're out there. Then I did X-Men, the movie game, the first movie that came out.
Okay.
I
Yep.
did trading card game for that. And that was not a success really because the boosters weren't ready when the movie came out. So they sold a starter set. And by the time the boosters came out, the movie run was done and there really wasn't much interest.
Right.
So they learned the timing of those, of what happens when they come out is crucial.
Right.
And then, but they did take some mechanics from me for future ones, and they paid me. So there's a mechanic in the Nitro game called the blue card, and that was hadn't been done before ever, and they really liked it. So they used it for Harry Potter and a couple other things. So my first 3 games were trading card games, which is a crazy way to start as a game designer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what I was doing when I made Wyvern. I mean, the game turned out okay, I guess, but since then I have learned a lot.
I bet.
So so then I sort of had it with spreadsheets. That's all the trading card game work is. It's all the spreadsheet stuff. You have to balance, and then you have to throw away the balancing and make it fun. So you have to put cards that break the rules and do all kinds of crazy things. So, but after 3 of those, that was it. So I went back. I said, what am I going to do as a regular game? And Rummy came to mind because I loved that game from when I was a kid. So I did the Mystery Rummy series, and it started in '96 with Jack the Ripper, and there's 5 of them, based on a book or based on a true story. So each one is based differently. And I have number 6 ready, and so I did a lot of those games. And then we'll get right to baseball highlights in a way, because after all that, I spent a lot of time wondering if a sports game could be made in kind of the hobby gaming. And when I did my research, every company said, no, it's just not going to sell. The gamers are not sports fans, and they just wouldn't buy it. So I said, well, that put a challenge to me, sort of. So the late 2000s, I started trying to make something. And around 2011, 2012, I started to actually make something real in a prototype. I started to put the ideas and execute them. But it took me till 2015 before I was done. So there certainly are problems with it, with just putting a simulation sort of game in the hobby, in what was happening in the hobby market at the time. Baseball as we know it, that game, as you know, if you play baseball highlights, you know it's not baseball.
Right.
However, and I'll ask you this: when you're done with the game, do you feel like you played baseball?
That's the thing that boggles my mind with that game. Is I play baseball highlights, and it's not a simulation, but it just feels like that whole chess match of what managers go through with baseball. And I find it remarkable how well that game translates the theme into a game, because I'll say this, I can't wait for baseball season to begin. Like pitchers and catchers, they can't sign in fast enough for me. And me and my family, we don't play. We watch baseball. We're big Jays fans up in Canada here. And there's just so much for me, the chess match of baseball, because as a pitcher, you can throw it anywhere on the plate, but then you can throw a different pitch on there, or you know what I mean? And then as a batter, you're like, okay, yeah, he's going to throw me a fastball, but where is he going to throw me a fastball? Oh, he's going to throw me a curve. Where's it going to end up, right? Is it going to be 12-6 or whatever? Like, there's so many things. And then you've just translated that so well in baseball highlights, because you have just that whole like chess match of, okay, well, I've kind of seen the cards that he's been like, he as in like your opponent, or I've seen the card that they've been like curating their deck, lots of robots, lots of cyborgs. What am I going to do? What am I going to draft? How am I going to build my team to counter that? And so, yeah, when I play baseball highlights, it just gets me excited for baseball, like just watching baseball on TV.
Oh, that's great. And that is a pretty common interpretation for people that enjoy the game. And that's a good way of saying they do enjoy the game. That was hard to do, really hard to do. So what saved me on that was that I always make a mission statement before every game I do. And this was difficult because, and I've changed mission statements. Sometimes I'll find out it's too hard to do. I'll just make an easier one. You know, so I've done that a lot too. But this one, baseball is so special to me. I said, no, I'm not going to finish this until I get every one of these statements correct. One of them was every score possible in the baseball game, from 1-0 to 13-12, and all in between.
Right.
And the other one was 6 cards play, and that's the game. Each person play, you know how it works, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Game's over, because right from the beginning, I realized to do baseball right, I wanted a deck builder, basically. I mean, a game that you would add to your deck between each mini game, which is what, 5 minutes for most of us who play the game. And so all that, so the hardest thing was the scoring and how to make that score work. And along the way, I had to give up baseball. I mean, I had to say to myself, okay, well, I'm not going to track out. So it's not going to be a good way to do that in this format, going fast like this. And I've got to have a move. I wanted a 7-game series, about 40 minutes, which is what we have now. That's what that game can do. And different ways to play. Lots of ideas and stuff are available for that. So I find the first step, and I made a mistake when I was drawing a couple of cards. I had a lot of paper pencil cards. So I had a card with a guy who had like a double, and I tried to erase the double and put home run. I know I was trying out a couple of ideas with costing and stuff, but I didn't get much of the double erased. So when I'm practicing with it, I always use the solo game. What it is, it's a pretty simple solo game that I provided. People have made some pretty fancy versions, some of them really good, of that. But anyway, I would just flip cards over and flip the other card over, see what happens. So I flipped the card over, and there I'm looking at double and a home run. And my mind just said, wait a minute now, why can't both happen at that same time? Why can't these hits both be threatened?
Right.
Because otherwise I'm not getting anywhere. And of course, having the 2 fields so that you are playing the defense against the other guy's offense, and it's on the same card. So you have that defense goes first kind of thing, affects his hits that were threatened.
Right.
Then it goes to resolving his hits. That's the step 2 of the waltz. And then it's back to the other guys putting his hits on. Basically, there's that 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And that was bumpy. So, but when I kept trying and trying, I thought, I'm going to stay down this path just a little while, because it was weird. And I thought it was really weird. But as I got closer, I said, wait a minute, I can do this. I think when I got to that point, I said, there's a way to do this. So I kept with it and kept with it. And I remember taking it to my playtest group, who really enjoyed some of the versions. I mean, even though they weren't finished stuff, they weren't realistic scores and stuff. But, and I saw them playing, and they took about 3, 4, one game, let's say one mini game, they took to sort of iron out that, okay, this goes then, that goes that, and that 1, 2, 3. And then it was sort of natural to them. And we did the on deck thing. I had one of my best play testers. His name is Mark Delano, and I haven't seen him in years. Mark, if you're out there, hi, and thanks for everything. He broke the game several times to me. He said, well, I can get the same, I know how to do this now, so I can get the same 6 cards every hand. Because you have 15 cards, and you got to go through them. And he figured out, because we had some silly culling rule at some point, and he was able to get rid of cards or get them milled through them like so fast that he would draw the same suit card turn, and that breaks the game because you have your best suit card turn. So back to the drawing board. I changed all that. Finally, I get this game done. So there's a circle of people that really enjoy playing it at that point, but I still don't know how publishers or the game world's going to react at all. So I started showing it around to publishers, and they really liked the game. They'd say, "Wow, this is good. Can you come back tomorrow? I got some friends coming over. We'd like to play a league." I said, "Oh, you want to do a series and a tournament?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, does that mean you're interested in publishing it, man?" And he said, "Oh, no, so we can't publish this game. Our two-player games don't sell, sports games don't sell, but man, it's good. So could you come back?" So I had that response 3 or 4 times, and I'm saying, "What's going on?" So I finally found a publisher, and what all they've been looking for, because both the people at the top of the company were huge sports fans. I mean, huge sports baseball fans. Let's put it where it's at. Baseball. They've always been looking for a baseball game. So I go to Gen Con. I show it to Sean Brown, who was number 2 at Eagle Griffin Games at that moment. Rick Sue is the owner. And Sean says, we've been looking for this. We have been looking for this for years. So he calls up Rick. I'm sitting right there, and he calls Rick. "I found it." "And where'd you find it?" "I found the baseball game that we're going to publish." So, and then that started, and then they go and hire, just coincidence was about to happen anyway. They hire my best friend to lead design work on games. Ralph Anderson, who was up in Connecticut at the time, we had played in gaming clubs. I used to live close to him. We played every week. He helped me out on the mystery rummies and the early days of the stuff, the Wyverns and all the trading card games. And then when I moved to Jersey, things changed a little bit, and then out here to Denver. But we got back, and we're still working on games together at this point, and that's why Eagle Griffin has a bunch of my games, because they were believers right from the start. It took a long time though. The game didn't come out of the chute and wow anybody. They don't, they're a boutique kind of company. They kickstart everything, and they don't spend a lot of money on marketing and stuff. But gradually, every month, it sold a little more than the last month. And I'm talking maybe 20 copies in its first month.
Wow!
But maybe 30. By 6 months, it was pulling in decent. And then by the end of the first year, we knew we had a hit. And that's when I went back hard and did expansions and stuff. And now we're speaking at a perfect time, because I will throw this plug in February, which is almost February now. There's a Kickstarter for a new edition of Baseball Highlights that only has 20 new cards, but they're pretty big cards. And it includes, it's called the Baseball Highlights 2045 Bases Loaded. So this has everything, because a lot of players still discover this game each year. And this is a way to get everything in one box that has been made for the game, but in a very easy, accessible way. You're going to have only one copy of all the starter teams, because over time, people wanted their city. We had to go way over on cities, so I could only make so many teams, et cetera, et cetera. But now you get a league's worth. You get, with cities attached and everything else. Though everything like the coach expansion, which never got used very much. The coach expansion, all the other major expansions.
The Magna Glove. Ballpark.
All that stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that does. And they just ran out of everything else. So they ran out of everything they've basically made for it. So that's going to kickstart and then be out before this Christmas.
I was going to ask, with just a few years, you're almost at that 10-year I was going to ask, is there any more content? And tickle me pink. I'm excited for that. Do you have like a Shohei Ohtani card that has like ridiculous
Oh yeah,
defense and like amazing offense as well?
yes, yeah. His name is in the game is Say Hey Shohei.
Say hey Shohei. That's sweet.
Say Hey Shohei. So, yeah, he's it's the most expensive card in the game. It's 15.
15. Well, I was expecting like 700 or something that, but
Well,
15 is
yeah.
yeah, I know.
And I did, even though the pitch he throws is called the sweep,
Okay.
which is, of course, just a cutter basically that is being used now and over exaggerated. And he's one of the best at doing that. So, you know how he has that. It goes right across the plate, breaks that way, straight across. That I'll give you that one. I'll tell you what the sweep does. So the sweep says if you're ahead or behind,
Okay.
cancel all hits on the batter's card.
If you're ahead.
If you're ahead or behind.
Okay, so it doesn't activate if you're tied.
That's correct. And so that was the closer and the other and the hold, the guy who was, it was called hold and it was called closer. The closer, if you were ahead, you'd cancel. The hold guy, if you were behind, you'd cancel. So they never worked on ties. Right. And I found that even saying ahead or behind presents problems because most of the game you're tied.
Right.
So you got to engineer it right. And then his offense is nuts. But there's a lot of fun cards. There's a couple of new ideas that I hadn't gotten to use in any of the other expansions. I don't think I have the energy to commit to a lot more, but we'll see. I've had some help on this one. Dan King is a big fan of the game. Phil Millman's a big fan of the game and the world champion for about 3 years straight. Well, that was taken over by Kevin Burkhardt-Meiser, who's now the
game toppers.
Yeah. So they really help those guys, because I asked them, what cards do you think have been underused? Like, what keywords are you really looking for when you're playing that maybe aren't there enough? And we'll do a promo card for each of you. So we've got a card for each of them that they help design.
That's awesome.
So so that certainly has been the game that took me the longest of any game I ever did. Even the trading card games, it took about 5 years, 4 or 5 years to get that game right. And I'm glad I did it, because giving up on one of those mission statements I had I would not have been happy. Right. I probably wouldn't have even tried to publish if I couldn't. I just stayed with it until it worked. And then I said to myself, this could bust completely because it's so crazy. I mean, who would think of the two fields and all this other stuff? And yet, when I saw people play, I said, because I had gotten it kind of, but I didn't know how other people would feel. But once people come in touch with the game, and now it's gotten a good reputation, so there are still people. We're counting on finding those people that still haven't discovered it, but they've heard about it a lot. Now they've got a nice new set that they could get introduced to that has everything. So we're hoping that works out.
Right on. Well, as we wrap up, man, I'm excited because you gave me the best possible answer to my question on if there's any more content coming up, and lo and behold, there is. So there
is right now. Yeah, we'll see. I'll this would be, you'd expect for a game like this that maybe we've reached the end of sort of the excitement and stuff. It's been like 8 years now. It's just the game first game. It's a long time in this, especially in this gaming area. There's never been so many games coming out. I mean, you can lose track of a game completely. As it is, I got football highlights out, and I've got Crunchtime, which just came out. Have you played Crunchtime?
I have not. Yes,
okay,
I know. it's basketball.
Right. It is
So
basketball. It's nothing like the other two. It's nothing like baseball highlights or football highlights. It's a very small game. It should be a nice price. I don't know exactly what they made, but it's selling right now. I should check their website. I could find out how much they're charging, but it is on sale now. They've finished fulfilling to all the Kickstarter people, and we're going to have some tournaments at Dice Tower West. I'm at some local stores in February, and yeah, we're gonna have some fun with that. It's an abstract strategy game that I think most people will feel like they're playing basketball.
Yeah, from what I've seen on it, it looks great.
From what Joel Eddy is, is really a good reviewer. I think I've always been a fan of his stuff, and he just praises the game to no end. He calls it the best basketball board game it's ever made. Now, the difficulty of that game was movement. Because I can't see basketball without movements. Can you? I mean, movement is what the game is. It's what you're watching. You're watching these guys run up the court or back and forth, and you're watching, Nokic do stuff he does and everything else. And that's a 3-person design. Myself, Ian Bach, and Ricky Yeaner, we all designed it together because I knew I needed help. I mean, I knew I didn't. At the beginning, I had no idea what I was going to do with movement. So we tried many, many things. And one of them, Ian Bach, came in to one of the design sessions and had solved it. And I won't tell you what that is. He did see in the game, but he just solved all movement. Once I had movement solved, it was a piece of cake. It was fun. I just brought out the fun, and the game is a lot of fun. The game is quick. 15, 20 minutes, maybe. It has some real thought. It's pretty crunchy, and it's perfect information.
Right on. Well, I look forward to playing that as we wrap up. And I just want to say again, thanks so much for taking the time. As our time is just about up here. This has been a delight. I love hearing how games become games because we see them on the shelves, and so often we think, oh yeah, that's a cool game, but you don't know all the history, you don't know all the story, you don't know all the pitfalls and all the mountains that designers had to climb to get these games on our shelves. And it's so exciting for me to hear that Baseball Highlights more is coming out, and it's going to be like all encompassing to bring new players in, and that's fantastic. So if you have not played Baseball Highlights, check it out. It's a fantastic deck builder. Even if you're not a baseball fan, it has this kind of paper, rock, scissors elements where 3 different types, cyborgs, robots, and naturals all play baseball abstractly in this game. So I just want to say, check it out, and I'll be looking forward to getting this new content, Mike. And I just want to say thanks for taking the time. Sure.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, that's what designers love to talk about. It's just the stories of how what you go through to make a game, and sometimes where the answers come. They just come in the strangest ways. They don't always come from a way you think about. So it's really fun. Like I have a lot of conversations with people like Eric Lang and Richard Garfield, and we sit around and chat about a lot of things that we were surprised of. Bruno Gathala is a wonderful designer, by the way, who like me, he takes on a lot of challenges.
Who I'm hoping to chat with one day. And so if you want to connect with Mike, go to BGG. He's there. You can geek mail him there, right? Am I correct in that, Mike?
Yep.
And so you can connect with him there. And again, I believe that conversation, community is built on conversation, much like games are built on ideas. And so if you want to know more about Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples, find us on Facebook, Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.